Adam, do you have Debbie queued up to call
Yes,
right?
yeah, Debbie's just been on the phone. I
All
don't
right.
have speakerphone.
Oh, yeah, there's a
Huh?
part of one.
You do? Is she there?
Yeah.
Oh,
you're
good.
the President.
Hi, Debbie.
Hi, Debbie.
Now,
Are you ready?
yeah, Miranda, I talked to her yesterday, she can't make it.
All right.
Sorry. So,
Oh, okay. You'll tell us what she was going to talk about.
I will do the best.
Or something.
I will do my best, yes.
Okay.
So,
Good to know.
I better get my notes on.
The way she said she was taking herself off the speaker so that it might be easier to hear her if she said something.
All right, folks, it's 6 o'clock. Let's get started. Thanks for braving bad weather, but at least it's not 40 and raining. Is it my imagination, or does anyone think the red buds are more beautiful than ever this year?
Yes.
They are
Yeah?
very vibrant.
They are.
They are bright spots.
Dogwoods
Yeah.
blooming now too is
Yeah.
pretty spectacular.
So things are good. I guess the rain does some good for those things. But anyway, let's get started so we can get home before it gets dark, maybe. First off, approval of the March 28th board meeting minutes. Michael, you had a couple of corrections.
Actually, just
Email to us.
one correction, very minor, page 3 of the minutes under Strategic Planning Committee. Section A said the board discussed the use of Mark and potential use of another prospective researchers. I think based on the structure sentence, it probably shouldn't have the S on it. So I would
Yeah.
approve or move for approval of the minutes with said.
All right, thank you. May I have a second?
A second.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the March 28th, 19 minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? I should note Debbie Ladyman is on the phone. Hi, Debbie.
Hey, how are you?
Good, thanks. How's Florida?
Oh, it's beautiful down here.
Oh,
Very
great.
nice.
That's good. I'm glad you're where it's warm. I should note that should we have to vote on anything, Debbie is aware of this, but our bylaws do not allow for proxy voting. So I don't think there's anything too major tonight, but just for your reference. All right, that brings us to the treasurer's report. Michael?
Everybody should have received in the board packet, we had $6,946 in income, and we had $31,092 in expenses. So I'll entertain any questions on the report of claims, or entertain a motion for approval.
I move to approve the claims for March 2019.
Second.
Okay, report of claims has been motioned and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving that signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Hi.
And, okay, motion is approved. Let's see here. I thought we were going to do the automatic consent tonight. We're not going to practice that tonight, are we?
Not yet.
No,
Okay.
we haven't
talked
agreed.
about it again.
We have not
Agreed on it.
agreed yet.
Here's, I brought my dog-eared book too. All right, sorry. Moving right along. So, budget timeline. Okay. I thought someone was going to ask about the little box that Alex put in there, but I'm going to let it go. Okay, the schedule of key dates for the 2020 budget planning process. Has everybody had a chance to review that? So the first order of business is a selection of a board budget committee. In the past, we've always used the executive committee, which was the board chair, vice chair, and the treasurer. I'm not sure if anyone has a problem.
I'd like to be part of that budget committee, just with my background, if I can, please.
Okay. I have no problem. Yep. All right. And just like what we're doing right now, Debbie, I usually attend by phone. So
That's for board members.
Yeah.
I don't think we
That's a
can.
problem. We can't do
that's-
that.
we
That is
got-
for
we
board
can't do
members.
that.
um,
Without noticing. You can do
Without-
it, just not without noticing.
yeah.
Or if
Right.
Adam appoints it, as we've learned, would that fall
But
under
then
that
you'd
kind
still
of-
have
We can't
4.
do that.
Yeah, you'd still-
That's true.
Still 4. I'll drop out if that makes,
I'm
if that
happy to
makes
do
it
that
easier.
too.
Well, but as board chair, you really shouldn't.
It might. The gift that
Yeah.
keeps giving back.
All right. Well, you have a lot on your plate. Does that make sense? Debbie, would you be willing, if Mary Jane would step away, we could certainly use you, and that would free her up to do some
I
other
think that'd
things.
be fine. I hate to, I'm not meaning to boot you out, but I do.
I think she's
you know,
thrilled.
I've done some amount of work on the budget already, and I think
Yeah.
it just makes sense. for
She's
the
doing the
district
happy
to
dance
buy
here.
Yeah.
duties, okay?
Now
Not
that-
at all.
Okay.
People talk to me, not numbers, so.
Okay, all right. So the new committee would be you, me, and Debbie.
Okay?
If that, I don't know that we need to vote on that.
I don't think so. I don't think so. All right.
All right,
And then, starting tomorrow, we will plan on dates between tomorrow and June 22nd. We'll usually take about 3 meetings.
yes.
I think Adam usually tries to get those scheduled. And then, of course, the presentation of the 2020 budget will be June 22nd. First public discussion, July 20th. Second public discussion, August 24th. Public hearing on September 26th, and then the board adoption of the 2020 budget would be October 24th, 2019. All right? So I'm going to move.
Sounds good.
Okay. I'm going to move over now to the discussion on type and amount of allowable funds. Miranda Busey was appointed as our DLGF field representative a month ago. I've had several discussions with her. I invited her to tonight's meeting. She couldn't make it tonight. I'm going to invite her to the May 23rd meeting because she has a lot of information. So, for example, for those of you who have been coming to the meetings as long as I've been coming to them, I always heard we have one account, and that's called a general fund. That is true. That is true. However, we could have multiple accounts and not just have one account. So what we've done, what our founders have done, is they've put our cumulative maintenance fund in our general fund. That's okay, that's legal, and State Board of Accounts accepts it. Problem with that is it's taxed at 24 cents per $100, okay? If we were to establish, and we would be establishing a new cumulative building maintenance fund, pardon me, I'm going back to my roots. Cumulative maintenance fund, that tax is almost 3.5 cents per $100. So it's a lot less tax. To give you an example, okay, here we go. So let's just give you, and I'm going to move real quickly through this. So what the cumulative maintenance fund, it's the gross assessed value times 0.033 divided by 100, okay? Now, I don't know what our gross assessed value is, but I know what our net assessed value from the emails Adam sent us from Umball, Baker Tilly. Our net assessed value, which is less than our gross assessed value, is $132,941,000 times 0.033 divided by 100. If we were to do that this year, we would have collected $43,870.53 in addition to our budget. I'm going to pause for questions.
We would have had to assess that on our taxpayers, on our freeholders, right?
Well, let me give you another example. You have a $100,000 house. Your cumulative maintenance fund tax would be $33 a year, which is different than your conservancy tax on a $100,000 house, which would be $240 a year. It is an additional tax. So it is an additional tax, but look at the difference. I mean, it's $107 difference, or $207 difference. I'm sorry, I'm trying to do the math, and so.
But we just did, how many cents did we just raise the tax? And then you're basically saying it'll be another 3.5 cents. But this is something.
I'm not saying that because we're past the deadline. Here,
Right.
let me move on, and then because I know there's going to be a lot of questions. So, this establishing a cumulative maintenance fund is no different than doing a bond. We have to publish it. We have to have a public hearing. we have to then listen to our freeholders. Then we have another meeting where we vote on it. It's okay. It's almost like a referendum or anyway.
So this is establishing it separate from our general fund.
That is correct.
what you're
That is
trying to
correct.
outline. Okay, outline.
Yes, because it is a separate tax, and it's a less of a tax. Now, here's the issue that I see moving forward is we've got all these bond things that we've been talking about and reading about. So now Miranda Busey, our field rep, she suggested that we start this process in January of 2020. If we believe, because it can be remonstrated against, okay, just like our budget. Our budget can be remonstrated against, by a freeholder. I don't know. It's something that we will have to discuss throughout the year to see if that's what we want to do after we've already tacked on $1 million bond. Let's just keep it at that.
Well, one of the things we could even consider doing too, because one of the things that's nice about a CUME maintenance fund is that it's tracked separately. It's its own isolated account. It's designated for the capital maintenance of the lake. And we effectively have, the way it's run now, it's effectively in the general fund, which makes it a little bit more blended, a little bit harder to see, a little bit murkier. I mean, it's there, but I mean, in a separate fund, it's very clear. Here are the reserves that are in place that are dedicated for capital maintenance. One probably could look at, because we're currently effectively taxing for that in the general fund. I mean, one could make, I'm not saying that it would be the thing we would do or would not do, but we could lower our other tax a little bit because we're moving those dollars into the new fund so that that the impact on the taxpayer is effectively nil.
Okay.
Very true.
Then what's the benefit of?
What it does is, if it's in the general fund, the body, we as a body very easily can reappropriate those funds for any purpose that we determine. If it's in the CUME capital fund, it's very specific as to what it can be used for. We can, and there are probably mechanisms by which we can abolish it and ultimately reappropriate it. But my understanding is there's likely more steps. So it's more of a show of commitment that we as a board are putting aside these monies for the ongoing capital maintenance of the lake, and these funds are dedicated specifically for that purpose. So it really kind of shows where those. I mean, it's easy to track. Yes, we're using those monies for the intended purposes. No, they're not being redirected for general operations of the parks of the Conservancy District.
So are we incorrect on our balance sheet when we call this a cumulative maintenance fund? When
No.
it's basically just
No.
more designated money that we've moved that way. We could still spend it if we wanted it.
But
That's just money we moved there, correct?
No, what we're doing is it's still in compliance with state law and accepted by the State Board of Accounts. This is just another tracking mechanism, and it can be a separate tax. And obviously would be a separate tax, but in
A
lot
lower
of
tax.
communities do use those for those purposes. Because it's not something that's only available to conservancy districts. It's available to cities, towns,
townships.
what have you.
And it goes along with, and if we can get Miranda to come to maybe next month's meeting, Adam sent an email about continuous maintenance fund, rainy day fund. There are dozens of different fund mechanisms that we could get into. And like Michael said, take it out of our general fund, reallocate it to another fund, and charge less tax.
We need her to come.
Yes.
This is a lot, and I think if you can really try for May, that would be
yep.
awesome, and then we can further discuss.
If I could get some clarification though, so currently the freeholders pay 24 cents per 100? is what
Correct.
you're saying? So if we moved it over to the other one, they're only going to pay 3.5 cents.
3.3.
So I see that as a reduction to our revenue, our income.
No, it'd be on that money, right? I mean, on the
The
Maintenance
24 is if I'm understanding it properly, is is the current assessed rate to fund our general fund.
Right.
For the general fund,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so
Yeah,
we're
for
taking it from a pot where we're
317,000.
getting 24 cents and we're putting it in a pot where we get 3.5 cents.
Right.
So I'm saying
The 24 doesn't necessarily go away unless we lower our general fund budget.
But if it's not in that bucket anymore, the 24 doesn't apply to it, right?
We would reduce the general fund budget maybe by $5,000. And so, because that's what we have now in 6610. So that you're going to reduce it just a little bit, but it's not significant.
Okay, all right,
All right.
so it's not a whole lot.
Right.
So-
Yeah,
But that seems like a lot
you're
of
not-
trouble, though.
You're
too.
not getting rid of the 24 cents necessarily. You may be getting rid of a little bit of the 24 cents, but that still stays. This would be an additional tax that goes to that specific fund.
I think it gets into the whole discussion of what do we think we need for reserves, and really, I think UMBAW, recognize that we didn't have, some of these funds. We probably just need to decide, kind of establish, what we think we do need to set aside for these various purposes, and if we're in the current position of thinking about, tacking on another tax, or making it equal, so.
Okay, Mike, can you have her?
I will
see if you can cue that up.
continue
And we need
to,
more. We need more
yes.
understanding. This is going to confuse the heck out of
Yes.
everybody.
Mike, if
Yeah.
she has anything in writing, there's a section, or Adam, maybe you can get a hold of it, that kind of defines all those, or maybe you could ask Mitchell and Umbaugh for that. It probably would be helpful for us to be able to read it before she comes.
I will send everyone a link to a website where you can view all the information I just described.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
Awesome. All right, that brings us to the manager's report. Adam?
All right, pretty short this month. Barge operation is going. We're on the water. Started digging this week at the marina. It is still incredibly wet out, so it's pretty tough in the disposal sites. Ground's very saturated, but we're moving along, and all the equipment seems to be operating well and going. Clinton, who's our head operator now, has been very good. Really good on the machines, really quick. I know John was out there watching us the other day, and so I'm glad to have him back. What is that? Oh.
Yeah, you were on the push boat today.
Yeah. So we're on the water, moving forward. Park's been in full swing too. We've been hectic. We've been packed out of both of our lots on most of weekdays now. I think because Monroe is still over 16 feet high. Most of the ramps are closed. I think we're catching the overflow. So revenue has been really good as far as boat passes. So we're looking pretty good. The season is here. It's officially here.
Did you say Monroe is 16 feet high?
Yeah, they were 20 feet just a couple weeks ago, and I think they're slowly letting water out.
I know I've been getting tons of phone calls from fishermen about
Yeah.
getting in.
Oh, my goodness.
So we're catching all that overflow.
Yeah.
That actually happened last year as well. Their beaches were shut down
Remember that.
almost until June sometimes. They caught that overflow. And I guess one thing I really wanted to bring up real quick in the manager's report, and I couldn't find anything where we've actually our park's always been open Memorial Day weekend to Labor Day weekend, that Friday Memorial Day to the Monday Labor Day weekend. And I can't find any statutes or resolutions that we had that set those dates. But one of the things I was thinking about this year is we can actually open up as soon as we get our health permit. And that inspection will be coming up really soon. So if there's no kind of concerns, I'm half tempted. All of my college students are out of school. Next week is their last week of school. So I'm thinking as soon as we get our health permit, instead of turning people away for 2.5, 3 weeks, might as well
Sure.
open up early and get in full swing.
Absolutely.
I don't think we need a motion. I just kind of wanted to just let that be known and get it on record. I've looked through everything and I couldn't find anything where it was actually set by motion or resolution. So
The one thing to just keep an eye on too is, obviously, if it's like a day like today, I would make sure it's not staffed, because you're not gonna make any revenue.
Yeah.
If it's a good day, and there's an opportunity to generate more revenue than the expenses, then I'm all for it.
yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
So
What
by
about
open up,
insurance?
you mean we would have our gate
Does
attendant
insurance
there, we would start
do
charging?
it? Is that what
Yes.
Now,
you said?
I guess
Yes.
you just gotta be sure the salaries justify it somehow.
Debbie, could you repeat that, please? We had two people talking at once.
By opening up, that means that we would have the gate attendant out there, we would start charging for people to come in, correct?
Yes.
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 Okay, so we just wanna be sure that, we don't have somebody sitting out there, and there's like 2 cars come in all day or something,
Yeah.
that you should probably just give some thought to that.
We generally have them, right now, we only run them on weekends. Up until just a couple weeks ago, we did all that, and then we only run them on Friday, or really Saturday, Sunday now. So we historically, in the past, the way that we're budgeted now, just because it does get real busy with the boats, once they're out of school, we bring them in 7 days a week. And we always have.
They do
so-
other things.
Yeah, so,
Okay,
yeah,
well,
so
good.
I think it'd be, if anything, I think it'd help out would be making more money while they're up
Right.
there.
Sure.
Just once it gets real busy, we essentially have to move that whole pass sales on that operation out of the office, or we just people in and out all
Yeah.
the time. But
Okay,
so just
thank
letting,
you.
letting
I think
everybody know.
That's a good idea, good discretion.
So, your disposal sites are ready? West End disposal site's ready?
Yep, yeah, we're dumping there now.
And you're ready to go in District 4 for dredging? Is that what?
Yes, we started this week, yeah, we're there.
You started this week?
Yes.
Now, I know you have to change the bucket to remove debris that's in the channels and the things like that. I haven't been here in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, it's been a while. We have channel markers that are still past Ellis Point. We have 2 large stumps
Yeah.
that are off the tip of Ellis Point. We have 1 stump off the causeway that's starting to approach on the the water ski lanes. So, I don't want to, interact with your operations, but we're going to have to, if you're going to start opening the
Some debris
lake.
out of the lake.
Yeah, we generally do that in May.
Okay.
Yeah, early to mid-May is when we do that, make sure it's all cleaned up before Memorial Day weekend.
It is.
Stop us from doing it twice, because.
Yeah, otherwise you just
Yeah.
have to do it, you'll have to go there.
I mean, it is a safety concern, and I am a safety chief, and so it is just one of those things that brings,
I think that one log has been there that you're describing. I've seen that for a while now. And now it's moving a little bit, or is it just kind of hanging around?
There are 2 channel markers.
Yeah, I'm talking about more out toward the ski.
Oh, that's just one
That
log.
guy.
Yeah.
He's just been there.
I think he
for a while.
has, but I think he might be moving a little bit to the west, but
Okay.
I know,
Feels like it.
I know you
I
got to
saw- I
change.
saw those two, because we put buoys out a couple weeks ago on the channel, and I saw those 2 that were kind of blown out in the
So-
storm.
You can just,
There's a boat that sank near what you're talking about too.
Yeah.
That's not, it's
Causeway.
just a pontoon boat, or
Yeah.
just a
Just
pontoon,
a
not a whole
pontoon.
boat.
Is that the one where you can see the pontoon sticking up like this? You see the end of the pontoon up out of the water?
Yeah, it's just a pontoon,
Near
it's
that
not a
big
whole
log
boat.
you're talking about.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
Just so the skiers don't get.
Someone, since we're talking about debris, someone posted on that Nextdoor app this afternoon that there is a barrel that looks like it has liquid. Did you see this?
Yeah, actually, it's my neighbor's.
Is it
Oh,
blue?
it belongs to?
No, it's not mine.
Oh, no, it's
It was my
blue.
neighbor that posted it, so.
Is it a blue?
No, it's a white barrel.
Okay.
did they pull it out of the lake?
That I don't know. It
No,
looked like they'd left
the
it.
note said they didn't because they think there's something in it and they don't want to be responsible for polluting the lake. So we probably ought to go over and take a look.
Yeah, I can,
Carefully.
I'll look, does it say where it's at? I don't get on the next door.
It's Bob and Kathy Cummins, so they're
All right.
Yeah.
they're the newest house along my road that used to have the trailer that had the tree go through it.
Okay, all right, yeah, I'll get out there and look. I'm probably very suspect goes underneath the dock and just took on water, but we'll get out there and look at
I
it.
don't think there's.
I thought the white ones were food grade ones.
I think that is the case, yeah.
Yeah, so it's probably got water from the lake water.
That's my guess.
Hopefully that's all it is.
That'd be my guess as well.
But yeah, we'll get out there and look at them.
All right. Does that complete your manager's
Yes.
report? Because, oh, I'm sorry? Yes, sir.
We'll be trying to coordinate a volunteer weekend for Saturday, the 11th of May, probably probably mid-morning, 9 or 10, for a couple hours to get freeholder volunteers to go out and pull out the smaller and medium-sized debris, pull out the smaller stuff, move the medium stuff to shorelines, and then Adam in the following week can go out with his crews and pull out the debris that we can't get out. And the bigger stuff that we find that's mostly sort of submerged, we'll go and mark it with milk jugs, as we've done in the past, so.
I have a bunch of those in my garage. They're old chlorine bottles with it rinsed. If you need them, let me know. I'd like to get rid of them.
We'll have as many volunteers show up and man a boat and tie strings. I have 2,000 feet, actually 20,000 feet of baling twine.
Okay.
So we can, tie up to all kinds of things, get them to somebody that's gonna volunteer. But I'll be asking primarily the District 7 and District 6 representatives to send out emails to their constituents, because that's where most of the stuff is.
Sure.
And it affects those two districts the most. It's not on the other side of the lake. It's all in 6 and 7.
Jim, sorry, Jim was first, sorry.
This is for Adam. I thought you
Yes.
promised me you get that beaver launch.
Yeah, once the small barge is mobilized, we'll be up
I
there.
broke my lift cable this weekend, so,
On a beaver lodge?
no, not on the lodge. I broke it and I'm afraid to get in the water.
Oh,
So I gotta put a cable on my lift or I don't have a lift, so.
Oh yeah, as soon as we get the small barge mobilized, we'll be in there.
Steve?
We got that giant log that but it's on shore. They got one that's laying all the way across shore, and they got one that's on, like, right next to somebody's pier. I mean, you're gonna have to get a barger with cable or something.
Mm-hmm.
When you go to do it, let me know, I'd be glad to help.
All right.
One more thing, speaking of his area, is our curtain still intact?
I think I'm just gonna take it out. It does not, it gets blown out in every storm. I think all that's happened is the sediment gets built up behind it and then it kind of blows out. I think it was good to test out, but those are really designed for when you're dredging operations, actually section off a part of the lake to where it's not really flowing water. So I think it's definitely worth a trial, but I just need to get in there and take that out just because every time it builds up, it ends up getting blown out.
I'm sure it wasn't meant for
Yeah.
the amount of water that comes in.
No, I don't think it's.
Do
meant
we
to
have
handle
another
that,
spot
so.
where it would potentially be more,
I mean, it was a good spot because that creek's not huge. It's a good spot to test out, but it's not made for flowing water. It's made to kind of separate. It's a turbidity current, so they're made to, if you're digging in a 20-foot section or doing shoreline work, you're in a 20-foot deep area, you can put this curtain around the work, and it kind of stops the sediment from migrating out, but it's not designed for kind of a flow
rush of
through.
water, okay.
Yeah. Because the mesh is real fine on it, so what happens, it gets clogged up, and then instead of the water flowing through it, becomes a parachute essentially. So I think we'll probably just end up taking that out.
We should have that berm underwater still, right?
Yeah, so that should hopefully work, stop a
I mean, it
little
was
bit.
pretty
but-
tall.
Yeah.
if you deem it to still be, don't get rid of it, I mean, unless it's just in tatters, but
No,
we
we'll
might
keep
find
it,
another use for that someday.
Yeah, we may be able to
Spend
use a
money
lot of
on it.
time.
Bury that white barrel there.
That's good oil.
Okay, sediment management report. I'm trying to-
All right, next up, we've had some movement and potential changes on the sediment management report, or the study. The main thing that happened was we went with the Christopher Burke because they said they could do the in-stream sampling. Well, that was all based on it being a potentially wadeable stream. And the areas that we're measuring, and with the depth of Bean Blossom Creek being 8 to 10 feet in most areas, it's a different type of technology that they have to use to do the sampling, and samples have to be taken by boats. So in order to get out during a peak flow time would mean like today in the middle of a storm, we'd be taking them up on the workboat into the creek to do the sampling, which is very dangerous. So what they're looking at doing is going another method where our deliverables will all be the same. They can still produce the same sediment rating curves, the predictions,
Excuse me.
look at how much is coming in annually. But what they're looking at doing is they're creating the same model which they would use, but instead of basing it on the on-site data and the stream data, what she said is it's good to have, but he goes, when you're doing it in the stream, you're really kind of showing the specific sediment load at that specific time. So he says a 3-inch rain in February when the ground's frozen is going to be very different than a 3-inch rain in March when the ground's saturated or dry. So you get a snapshot, But what they're wanting to do now instead is there's actually a 77 sediment survey, the 04, 14, and then they're proposing doing another one for 2019 here just in the next couple weeks if we approve the addendum. And what they're going to do for calibrating their curve, instead of doing the in-stream, what they can actually do is look at the different bathymetric reports and studies, and they can utilize that to look at the sediment that's come in. They can still actually trace that back. They said there's really good rain and water data from Brown County and the Bean Blossom region. So they still have all the flow data and the storm data, and they can actually go back and kind of backtrack from what's actually come in to get our rule curves for calibration. And he said we can still go out in the future if we need to do some more, like potentially on-site ones to calibrate a little bit more, but he's very confident that the usability and the accuracy will be the same whether you're utilizing this data versus the in-stream. He says it'll actually kind of normalize it because instead of having the different variations in a 2-inch rain, this will kind of give you, the normalized out of 2-inch rain, here's what we can expect to come in. And he said that it can still be very accurate, and if they don't get it right, well then it wouldn't actually show up how much is coming in. And with that, there'd be a cost reduction. It's budgeted for $42,000, and there'd actually be a cost reduction from sampling. But when I've talked to him, is since we're gonna have a cost reduction there, and to make it more accurate, I had them go ahead and add in that they would be paying for it, including a new bathymetric survey on their dime. So essentially, our costs would remain the same. We would get a 2019 bathymetric survey, then they're going to look at the real sediment load and accumulation to calibrate the model to the event specifics. And we had quite a long conversation with the Lake Health Task Group and the engineer, and kind of talked about our concerns. And there's actually, in this page, there's a couple options that he mentioned, option 1, option 2, and option 3. The option 1 was keeping with how we were planning to do the inside data, but for that same cost, it'd say it'd actually be a little bit reduced sampling events because they do have to use this different Doppler type technology and go by boat. Option number 2 would be monitoring from the State 45 bridge, and I really didn't like that one. It kind of nixed it because then we're missing the confluence of Bear Creek and a couple other tributaries that come into Bean Blossom. And then option 3 is utilizing these bathymetric surveys. I'm very confident, they seem very confident in their ability. I talked with Sam from Shrewsbury, he said they're the modeling experts. He's like, so Christopher Burke says they can do it. He's like, their company fully supports that. So it is an addendum to the contract that we had in place. Another benefit is actually time frame wise, where he said we can probably have some initial data within 3 months, and then the reports will actually, instead of waiting until almost towards the end of the year to get our report and data to be able to manipulate our design, we'll have that a lot sooner. So time frame benefits are there as well.
So Adam, would it be a bathymetric survey of the entire lake or just the eastern part where we're concerned?
The entire lake, yes.
Okay, so I guess they're checking just to see if it would go all, if it's going all the way down?
Yeah, they can look at it, and he actually said when they do it this way, it expands the model. Instead of just 45, it'll expand it into the entire lake. So all the different tributaries they can look at, and they can still break out what comes from Bean Blossom by looking
How
at
do
that
they
data.
account though for, like you said, 3-inch rain in dry soil is not going to produce the same amount of runoff as frozen soil or whatever? How do they know if the ground is frozen or not? Or
Well, that's the trouble with the on-site and the variance on that. So this would kind of be a normalized scale where they can look at the type of rains. They'll say, all right, this given year we saw this much sediment accumulation, and we had 5 3-inch rains, 2 2-inch rains, and they can look at that and then track how much sediment came in on that. So it does kind of take out that variance a little bit of whether the soil was dry or that. It'll go more based off the actual water level.
Okay, and then just to refresh my memory, the final product is going to tell us
It's going to be the rule curve. So what the product will tell us is they're going to give us annual average for sediment that's come in, and then they're going to create a curve that goes from base flow to 100-year events, where it's going to say, all right, based on, like, if we get a 3-inch rain, it's essentially a 50-year event like we had in February for a 3.5 inch. So we'll be able to look at this and say, all right, with a 3-inch rain, we can expect this much sediment to come in. And with this model, we can look at an entire year's worth of data, so they can plug in the rain data from Nashville, the Bean Blossom area, and say, all right, here's what we had for an annual average. So it's going to show us the annual average, and it's going to allow us to do kind of a by storm
In cubic yards or-
calculation. Yeah.
But I guess my question though still is, if we hit a 3-inch rain, it's really gonna depend on the ground conditions. So you can't say, we hit a 3-inch rain, we're gonna get X.
You can get to, so it'll really, the annual average will be very nice, and then you can get close with that. But yeah, there's going to be some variance based on the type of ground conditions that you have.
What's the time frame that they would start and be completed?
He said we can have the initial data within 3 months, and they've actually been in contact with the company for the bathymetric report, and I've been CC'd and following along in those emails. So they said they're ready they can knock out the bathymetric report within 2 weeks of getting the go-ahead from Christopher Berg. And since we did have a cost savings, instead of us trying to buy a bathymetric study we didn't plan for, I was able to convince them to just pay for that and add it into the addendum.
And they're going to subcontract our weed control people? Did I read that? Or
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, that would be the same aquatic control.
And all for the estimated fee of $42,000.
Yes.
And then task 1 was $2,000 per event, which could take up to 5 additional events. So we could be 52,000 at the most. If we included task 1.
If we did additional events.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's something that we could do is after we do this, if we want them to come back, say next January, February, we're expecting to get another 3-4 inch rain like that, we could add on one of those additional events to further help calibrate and see some real-time data.
So we need a motion to,
Yes, we need a motion to approve the sediment
amend.
transport study addendum with Christopher Berg, and I would recommend that motion.
Can I ask one quick question?
sure.
It sounds like what you've been saying is that the modeling of the entire lake is more than what we were gonna get before. We were never gonna get that modeling of the entire lake under.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, so I think that's huge, because to move forward, I think we have to look at the all of the lake and the lake health, of the whole lake, so, yeah.
Well, the bathymetric study, that's a good thing, you're right, Debbie, to have for other purposes.
Right.
Yep.
So I see it as a
Yeah.
no-brainer.
Just for housekeeping, I'm surprised Michael didn't catch this, but we are amending a motion. It takes 2/3 of a vote from the board, so just food for thought. So I will make the motion to amend the,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I just saw a hand
To
up.
add to the discussion, I contacted the Army Corps of Engineers out of the Louisville office to a guy I know that used to work there and worked in the Tennessee Valley area for the Chain Lake assessment that they have there. And he refers that they've been doing this sediment flow analysis, erosion flow for slope surface analysis, and shoreline analysis. They've been collecting data for 30 years. When the first models came out, they were based upon the 10-year of data that they collected. Now they're into the 6th version of this modeling software, and the computers are much more powerful than they used to be. So the data is basically all based upon Army Corps of Engineer data that they've got 30 years worth of history. So they've normalized a 3-inch rainfall to just basically determine what's its impact to subsurface and surface erosion on slope surfaces coming into the watershed basin, and then how it deals with the shoreline itself, because obviously a 1-inch rainfall only impacts the shoreline a little bit, but a 3-inch rainfall is really stirring up everything along all the shoreline of the creek. So it's the Army Corps' data that they're using, and it's just much more reliable, which is part of the reason why Christopher Berg stated that we should do this instead of this point source analysis, because the modeling is actually much more reliable than what we're trying to do. And as Debbie said, now we're going to end up with a whole lake-based system versus just Bean Blossom Creek that brings in 82% of the water. We'll actually look at all 100% of the water that's coming in.
And it was actually a 4-inch rain that raised the lake 3 feet.
Yeah, it was 400, yeah.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
I would second Mike's motion.
I don't think he got it all the way out. And is it an addendum or an amendment? We have it
Addendum.
listed as an addendum, so is that different than an amendment with the 2/3?
I don't think it's gonna matter, but.
It doesn't, it
I think
doesn't.
amendment.
Exactly. I think it's an addendum
It's an
versus
it's
an
an
amendment.
To the contract.
It's an addendum to the contract.
An
Yes.
amendment.
Amendment.
Okay, we're using two of the A
It's
words.
two-thirds,
Two A
two-thirds
words.
vote to
So-
change the contract.
Okay, make your motion, Mike.
I just want to go back. I'm going to make the motion. But what's 1974? Did we do a study or what?
77.
77, it was
Okay.
the Army Corps of Engineers study.
Okay, my says 74. Does that say 74? 1974, 2004, 2014, then currently it'd be 2019.
Yeah.
Task 3, sediment load analysis, option 3. I'm sorry, I'm just.
Yep, 74 was Army Corps. All the rest are.
Yeah,
you've
or
been
what
around for.
we.
You've
we-
been around for.
We
Or
did
74,
2000.
yeah.
Okay.
So in the
All right.
70s, 2004, 14.
So am I making a motion to amend the contract? I
Yes.
make the motion to amend the contract with Chris Burke Company.
As proposed. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Amend, addend, whatever.
Right?
Motion
Thank
carried.
you.
We're good.
Sorry, I
Change.
take full
Yeah, thanks,
responsibility. We were changing the responsibility of the engineering tasks. The result, the output was the same, but the engineering tasks to do that, so basically I steered the task group into forcing them to amend the contract.
We like it.
All right. Next up, we have a financial update. We've been meeting with Baker Tilly and Ice Miller. Actually had a meeting last Friday, going over some of the preliminary financial reports. Once we have the final financial report, we will be presenting that to the public. So there's really not a whole lot of update right now. It's kind of ongoing work to figure out impacts on tax and how we're going to pay for this. So once we have our final reports, and we'll get it to the public.
When is your next meeting? I'm going to try to either listen in or come to it.
I don't think it's scheduled yet.
Okay, just let me know, please.
right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. It's SPC update.
Okay, well, moving on, because we talked about some of what Adam just talked about at the SPC meeting. Kathy McClure presented us with a handout for the Lemonade Days 4th of July weekend activities. And she is working to create a community building event and has contacted the Boys and Girls Club to use their facility on the 4th of July weekend. So there'd be kind of this whole package of here's what you can do at Lake Lemon over the 4th of July weekend. So it includes the boat parade, the annual boat parade that we always have, the fireworks on Friday, July 5th, and then also on July 5th from 11 to 2 at the Boys and Girls Club, there would be some different events occurring. The wine and canvas event, so it's a bring your friends and a bottle of wine or juice, and you get to see how well you can draw. This is a very popular, I don't know if you're aware of this, but it is a pretty popular thing for people to do. And there'll be an instructor to help people with their art projects. And they will donate money to, the hope is that they would people that attend will donate to the Lake Lemon Enhancement Fund. And
Who would donate the money?
the people who attend.
So does this need board approval, or are we basically saying that the Conservancy District is behind it then?
Well,
I don't believe isn't there a rule we can't sponsor it?
we need to get real clear on that part.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to talk about some of the things related to that when we talk about fund management.
That's where my head is going.
You have to be really careful with how we solicit money, what we say we're doing with the money, where the money is going. You know, we need an accounting of all the invoices, the income, that kind of thing. And I do think that the board should vote on whether or not this is the best time to do something like that.
Well, and
over the 4th.
there has been quite a bit of discussion about is the 4th of July weekend or the 4th of July week tends to be a very good week for the Conservancy District revenue. And so there, you know, we've had some discussion about, do we actually want to, you know, have another event that might or might not enhance?
I certainly have a little concern about I appreciate the efforts and everything, but I do have a little concern about having an event on what's already a peak.
And that's been the discussion in the committee as well. Some are like, oh, yes, and some are like, maybe not such a good idea.
And it doesn't help that this is directly in the middle, well, it's on the edge of my district, but it certainly impacts my district more than others because it impacts our ability to get to our homes.
Yeah. Sure. And the other piece of that was why, because we said we can't do this in the park.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how she went to the Boys and Girls Club to see if we could use their facility. So, we have not, as a board, have not set any parameters around what events we think need to happen. And Kathy and others, Ann Roboleski and some other people have kind of taken the bull by the horns and started to create these things. So, not to get too far ahead of myself, one of the discussions that we're going to have in a little bit about how the SBC works and how the board can be better involved in the recommendations. This is a really good example of how something has started that the board kind of went, okay, and I'm not faulting anybody, and people on the committee, on the SPC, charged ahead and have started to do things. I think we're at a point where we need, as a board, to decide what the structure should be and how we want to manage that structure. And I share the same concerns about the financial aspect of this and the reporting on how much money did we make, how much money is in the funds, and we have been kind of unstructured up to this point. So I think this is a good point for the board to make a decision.
Let's go backward. I'm trying to remember, did we vote on the auction, boat tour, home tour? Was that a board voted event?
No,
I don't think
we motioned was to waive the fee for them to utilize the park.
I didn't think we had made a big official thing, so, okay. So now is the chance to do it in a different way.
It's kind of like, we do need some structure and policy around this because a lot depends upon what we're telling people that we're doing with the money. And, we're insuring these events and things of that nature. And, it's not like running a class reunion fund. Like the government, they have really strict rules about, these kinds of events and things of that nature. And I'm sure the foundation can help us, but I'd come at it from just a risk perspective and managing our risk. And I think that the board does need to approve these events because I think people are under the impression that it's being run by Lake Lemon.
Anybody?
And I know I can't vote, but if I could, I would just say that honestly, I think the 4th of July, and I've said it before, if the goal is community building, a lot of people aren't going to be able to leave their friends and family and come over and do something. And it seems to me that we're missing the opportunity to take a totally different weekend and make a splash with bringing people out to the lake at a different time,
Much as we did with the September event.
Right.
Because we got way more people for that than I, could have imagined.
but there wasn't something else going on.
But there was nothing else going on that weekend, so.
Just a football game, but.
Yeah, but they.
But it's
yeah.
on you,
Yeah.
so, you
So
know.
nobody else.
Hey, I went to that game.
Yeah.
What do you-
Les went on, came
This
later.
weekend, too, there's not gonna
Yeah.
be, LCD staff won't be able to help with this. I mean, it's all
Right.
volunteers, so there won't be any LCD staff participation in that event, because we're all hands on deck.
Yeah, and you can't really saturate the community with stuff all the time anyway, you know, I mean, everybody's busy, they got lots going on. I mean, I'm happy with the one thing in September myself, you know, and that was a good time, the timing, you know, your staff can handle it, it was still decent weather, and so on, and I guess I agree, the 4th of July is just too chaotic to be taking on yet another thing to, you know,
I think so too.
manage.
Also, when we have these events, I know that they were talking about having bounce houses for kids and all these different things. Who's ultimately responsible for paying for those, for insuring those? I mean, is it something that is it something that this group is putting together, but then they're collecting from us again,
Well,
from the board? I mean,
and
from
this
the-
goes to
back
the other
structure, yeah.
concern that Debbie expressed about, and we have talked about the need for, before we move forward with an event, the board should see a budget for that event, and any costs that they need to pay up front or that kind of thing need to be delineated, and then the board should decide, just as we did prior to the September event, that we would reimburse for the insurance,
Right.
the additional insurance.
But we're sort of acting like this event is an entity, and it's not an entity. It's not like a nonprofit that is trying to support us is out doing this. It's individuals that are doing it, and I think that that's a really slippery slope. So if the money runs through the Lake Lemon Conservancy District, and Adam would have to tell you about that, but, we could release seed money. I mean, my understanding is there's something like $5,000 being held for, quote, seed money that's not in those foundation accounts.
I don't think that there's that much being held, because she also gave us an update at the meeting that from the proceeds from the fall event, the Monroe County Fund is fully funded at $5,000, so they made a deposit of about $4,000 into the Monroe County fund, and in the Brown County Foundation, they still there's only $300 in it right now. And then there's another $4,000 or so that's split between a PayPal account that was used to collect donations and an account that they set up for expenses that has about $1,500 in it. So
What is the name on the account and whose social security number and everything is? Is the auditor and me coming out by any chance?
yeah, I think it is, Debbie.
Just a little.
I don't have those details in front of me, but I would be happy to get them and provide them. But
Well, if it's a 501c3, then we.
no, this is Kathy and Ann.
Oh, I did not know that.
And they're specific
The
tasks.
501c3 are the foundations.
Yeah.
We didn't want to set up a 501c3 because we don't need to run something else.
No.
Okay.
So the money, the whole idea of doing that was to not create a bureaucracy. But we have a little bureaucracy here because of the way, and I'll say, because it was the first time out and,
It's
things kind of got
infancy.
ahead
Sure.
of themselves.
I mean, I guess my question is that,
Well, I
I mean,
think,
Hang on a second, Debbie.
I've worked with our church in the Johnson County Community Foundation, and they put on some really big fundraising events for scholarship. And those community foundations have all the resources. You can do this stuff under their umbrella, and they can tell you all the rules and all that kind of stuff. So we probably need to explore that a little bit more. But
Michael?
I
Yeah.
think that the
Yeah.
Lake Lemon Conservancy District is at risk. I mean,
Okay.
Okay.
Debbie, Michael was
and
starting to speak
when we get
too.
audited, who knows what, we're gonna have to, we've had to ask for a special audit if we issue bonds.
Okay.
So one of the things that I think is important for us to identify is this is Lake Lemon event for us. I mean, if it falls under, if it's an endorsed event,
So
or if
it's a lake, these are all events to benefit Lake Lemon. And if you pay money or donate money, it will go into the Lake Lemon Enhancement Fund, not to the Conservancy
Yeah.
District.
Can I stop you right there? Is that not a 501c3, the enhancement fund?
That is.
It's a fund within the foundations,
That makes.
and they are the
they're
501c3.
the 501c3.
That's
The-
So that's the umbrella that we are operating under?
Yes.
Well, see, that's the thing.
Or not.
If this is, it can't be an event. We need to make sure it's not an event of the Lake Lemon Conservancy.
I agree with that.
If it's not
And
our
that's been,
event,
I think we've
then,
been clear on that point.
then we need to make sure, then our authority should be whether, if it's on our property or area that we have consent over, it's either we approve or deny authorization to do the event at a particular point in time. If it's an event that we really have nothing to do with, then, and it's not on our property, then I'm not sure we have to say.
So when we got the extra
So,
insurance for last year.
Debbie, excuse me,
the
Debbie.
Everglades have written that insurance, that
De-
insurance.
Debbie.
Lake Lemon Conservancy, or did they write it for quote Lemonade Days?
Debbie, can you
No.
hold that question, because Mary Jane had a response to
And
Michael.
it's gone now, but, no. Say what you.
Well, so if it's an event that
But-
we're contributing to, we're sponsoring, we're endorsing, it falls under our liability, then we have, I would say, complete say over all components of the event. If it's an event that's done by an independent third party, whether that's an individuals or 501c or whatever, if it's being done on our property or an area that we have jurisdiction over for which we need to grant approval for it to be able to do, then we have a say in it. Or if it's an event that is our event, the Conservancy
Okay.
District's event. If it's an event that interested parties but that are not affiliated with us and not on our property or an area that we are responsible for or have jurisdiction over, then I'm not sure we have a say.
So my question is, can any person decide, I want to go raise money for the Lake Lemon Enhancement Fund?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would say yes,
But
In the name of Lake Lemon.
but not in the name of Lake Lemon.
Well, but most people won't make the distinction between the Conservancy District
Exactly.
and
It's
Lake Lemon.
related, it's related.
Yeah, it's so closely related that, I think it would be very important for us to say, this is not our event, we are not endorsing, we are not supporting, we're not doing anything.
But the
So I
money's eventually gonna
voted
come
Is
to
it
us.
called?
But if
And
the
we're
money-
advertising, well, in the September event, we had it on our property, and on this one, we're saying, come participate in the boat parade on Lake Lemon, and, we're advertising things that we already do and run and have taken contributions from our freeholders
Excuse me.
for. Maybe we need to ask an attorney about it, but,
I think if the events aren't if Lake Lemon is not
Ladies,
hosting the event, then
please.
we just need to wash our hands of it. And anybody else can host an event or a fundraiser. What concerns me is that the last one that we had in September,
Had our logo.
it had our logo, and we're saying all monies raised are for these community foundations. Well, lo and behold, over $4,000 never made it to those foundations for seed money. And I think that's where we get into a little bit of a gray area. And we can give, if they're doing an event in our name, we can provide funds to them if they need a couple $100s for this or that. What we cannot do is take money donations, they can't go through us to the foundation, they have to go directly to the foundation. We can't put our monies in potentially a volatile situation since it's invested.
we can't contribute, we can't make donations as a governmental
Okay.
entity.
But back to my question. If, you know, Joe Schmo decides he wants to go have a fundraiser, and it's money to give, you know, to go to the enhancement funds, but it's not with our branding, it's not with, you know, our message, which we're gonna come to in a minute. It feels like we're giving up a level of control, at least of the narrative about why we're trying to raise this money in the first place.
Correct, and that,
Right.
that is certainly a concern to me.
So here's what I would propose in the interest of, unless other people have something burning that they want to say. I think at next month's board meeting, we need to have Kathy and Ann and people who have worked on this come to this meeting, and we need to spend some time discussing how we're going to manage this going forward.
Absolutely.
They have, you know, they haven't done everything exactly the way it should be, but they have worked their hearts out, and we would never have raised
No,
the money
absolutely.
that we raised without them. So
And-
I
and
don't
they're
want
not-
to.
they're not here.
Their intentions are very commendable in what they're trying to accomplish. I mean, I don't want to take anything away from that, because I mean, they're sincerely doing things to try to help the lake, and that's to be commended. The key is, I think we need to probably ultimately have a policy that involves events that we, I mean, what type of events do we have control over? What's the process for doing that?
And it could be that we come up with you know, a plan that has a set of annual events in it. Some, you know, under the auspices of the Conservancy District, that we would help coordinate and staff and allow on our property. And there might be some others that wouldn't necessarily be under that. I don't know.
Strategically, Mary Jane, the thing is, like, if you think of an entity, we want money to benefit us, okay? And you can think of all these nonprofits. They might have a dinner, a wine tasting, a golf tournament. You know, we should be partnering and agreeing on these so that we can capitalize and put the time and attention and give resources required, you know, to be able to maximize the opportunity for revenue. So,
I couldn't agree with you more. But we need the board to be part of that process and and be in it for the planning. Where this got started was people trying to get some things off the ground because nothing was happening.
Right.
So
I would support your idea to bring this to the next meeting. Did you guys have a comment that you wanted to share publicly?
Aren't they a 501c under the Monroe County Community Organization? Or they
Who's
have no
who's they?
501c?
no, it's
They have no
it's-
final-
The task group? No.
No, I mean, the Lemonade people.
No, they're not a
So they're
501c3.
not, they don't have any nonprofit
No.
organization?
No.
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 I thought they were seeking that, and they.
Lemonade was merely, in fact, I'll take credit for
That was
creating,
you.
I
Yeah.
created
Yeah.
that term. And we started calling it Lemonade Days
Yeah.
and brainstormed some events in the SPC, and the first one was the house tour by boat and the fundraiser that we did at the
But
park last
originally they were
fall.
talking, first, that woman Susan was trying to get a nonprofit set up, and she was taken to.
And
we
I thought
decided
and
that
then
was
you-
not the way to go.
then I missed the point where you talked about going through Monroe County Foundation as an umbrella organization to be a
So
501c.
we have there is the Lake Lemon Enhancement Fund.
Yeah.
And it is available through the Community Foundation of Monroe County and Bloomington. It is also available through the Brown County Foundation. What we realized was we didn't want the structure to have to manage another organizational structure that a 501c3 would create.
Right.
And so then we found the foundations, and that we could set up a fund, and then people could donate, and the
So
funds get managed, and
So they are, they're umbrella.
No.
They would have to actually enter into some type of agreement right now, they're individuals doing it on their own. They are not.
Do we need a 501c?
No.
Well, you don't necessarily need a 501c3. However, I think part of our policy should be any event that's done on
Our grounds.
our grounds has to be insured, and we have to be named as an additional insured. And for that to happen, more than likely, they're gonna have to be some type of entity. A group of individuals is probably not gonna be able to
Not
get
gonna
the policy
qualify, right.
to be able to do
But
that.
they're part of the strategic planning committee.
So that makes it part of us, so that gives us complete oversight of it.
Right, we're responsible.
So then it is our event. If it's an event of the strategic planning committee, then it is our event, and we have complete discretion over it.
Whether it's on property or not?
Correct. If it's recognized as an event of the strategic planning committee or a subcommittee of the strategic planning committee, then it is one of our bodies that's doing it.
I have a question, maybe more than one question. We have a Lake Lemon Enhancement Fund. Who is in charge of that fund?
Community
The
Foundation.
Community Foundation of Bloomington and Monroe County and the Brown County Foundation.
They're in charge of our Lake Lemon Enhancement Fund.
They
Okay.
manage
They
the
manage
fund.
the money that we,
And they are the 501c3.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I don't have a question right now, but I'll think of one.
Now, the event
We
should be
approved
able
those
to partner with
agreements
them.
when they were set up.
They could go,
So-
Ann or Kathy could go to the Community Foundation
out of there.
and say, hey, we want to throw an
What
event.
does it take to do that?
Debbie, hang on, I think it's probably hard for you to hear, but Adam was speaking, so will you
Oh,
just?
I'm sorry.
It's
It is
okay,
hard
thanks.
for me
We-
to
Yeah, they can go to the Community Foundation and say, hey, we want to raise a fundraiser, and
For
then
this
do it
fund.
under their umbrella, and then they can
Right.
say, all right, well. you
We want this money to go into the Lake Lemon Enhancement
Exactly.
Fund.
Yeah,
That's
and then they
that's
can
how
use
that
their
has to
credentials,
happen.
Probably their insurance.
Yes.
They can probably see it.
This is,
They do
Okay,
events like that
but-
all the time.
But first, and this would be my ask of this group, there needs to be a plan for these events.
Yes.
And it needs
Yes.
to be.
I'm going to
it
give you
needs
an
to be
example.
vetted by this board, because we've talked numerous times in board meetings about the creation of the Lake Lemon Enhancement Fund. And tonight, you guys are still asking, well, what is it, and where's the foundation,
I'm gonna-
and that kind of stuff. So somehow, I want some additional engagement.
I'm going to bring you some copies. Our firefighters union hall, now, it's going to sound a little duckish, but we have Survive Alive House as a 501c3. The union runs everything through Survive Alive. Everything. Survive Alive is the major 501c3, but everything that's run through the union hall, our PAC, all of our fundraisers is ran through Survive Alive to promote Survive Alive.
Okay.
And then it has branches underneath that. I will get that for us. Because that sounds like that's what this is.
Debbie, I want to come back to you, sorry, this is a little challenging. Did you have a thought on this point?
No, I'm fine. I was just gonna say we approved those agreements. I was just looking for them on my computer, but, and we could talk about it more later, but how do we get the money out of there? If we want money, who's the one that says that?
Okay,
I
so at next month's board meeting, let's have a piece of the agenda dedicated to this topic, because
Right.
it's apparent that
Yeah.
we haven't gotten the message along the way.
Right. The other thing is, without Kathy and Ann here,
It's unfair to have the discussion.
it's unfair to really have more of the discussion, and out of respect for the work that they've already done, and the fact that they believe they are running an event around the 4th of July weekend, I think we need to give some serious thought to how we compromise on this, as opposed to yanking the rug out from under them.
And this kind of
And I
runs
don't
right
ex-
into your next agenda, right?
It does, and I don't disagree with anything that's been said, and feel similarly about the crowds,
We
but.
can't call anybody on our way home and say, you're done, Ian.
Yeah,
You're
no,
not."
absolutely not, right.
We have an upcoming strategic planning committee meeting between now and the next board meeting.
Yes.
I would recommend that that issue be clearly worked out and resolved, that direction be given to
Yes.
that task group.
It's on my mind.
To address those things. I caution the board, if you make the same comments you gave today to these two ladies about shutting down this event, you will permanently shut down those two ladies and they will raise zero funds for you in the future.
Yes.
They are gung-ho on this. Now, have they taken money and held it back incorrectly? Yes. Did this organization give them money to hold back permanently? No, that's the solution. Then every dollar received by these future events can go to the funds like it's legally supposed to. If you work out these agenda items and guidance items in the strategic planning committee a couple weeks from now, and you cautiously run your next meeting with these ladies and steer them, you will still have positive action in the future. But if you make the same comments you made today, you will shut that down totally.
And we don't want that.
No.
I don't think anyone on this board wants
But
that.
I would,
I understand,
you know what?
but
I would just say that I've tried to be gentle in my discussions with Kathy about the need for process and structure, and maybe we need to speak a little more directly.
Write down what they need to
Well,
produce
I
and
know
a
I
schedule.
Just a minute, Debbie.
last June about it.
Debbie,
too.
Debbie,
She needs to go mistletoe when she wants to talk.
Frank was talking, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I can't hear him way out there.
It's probably, her speaker probably kicks us out, so she doesn't know we're also trying to speak.
That's good.
The reality is we haven't given the task group in writing the performance elements and reporting elements that they need to abide by. It's only been talked
So
about.
that's on us.
We don't have a policy.
In general.
No,
That's on us.
or a memorandum of understanding with
Right.
the foundations
Right.
that I am aware of.
So that's what we need to work on, and
Well,
I
we
agree
have-
with you, it
we
should
have-
be SPC.
We have understanding with how the foundation works.
Do we have an MOU? Does the Lake Lemon Enhancement Fund have an MOU with Brown County Foundation and one with Monroe County Foundation?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, I've never seen that.
We approved it at a board
we
meeting.
approved it.
Oh, did we?
We
Okay.
did, we did.
I can't tell you which one, but we did.
Okay.
I got
Go ahead, Debbie.
I kind of forgot what I was gonna say, but I'm just.
Okay,
Okay,
then-
think on it for a second, I've got someone,
Money bitty here, but I also don't think that we ever approved this event, and I know what you're saying about trying to work something out, but basically it's putting an umbrella, calling something a big Lake Lemon event, and it sounds like there's one additional thing from 11 to 2 one afternoon, and then it's the fireworks and the boat parade. So I do, you know, I guess I thought the board would be voting on whether we should move forward, but, you know, we would have to quickly get with them and try to communicate there was concern over the timing of that, and would it be better if we did it another time?
I think we've determined it would be unfair to make a decision tonight on that. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think we're going to table it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes,
I know there's
ma'am.
about
Did you have?
5 or 6 people in here, and I agree with what Frank's saying. And I know Mary Jane and Hammy already know this. I got the impression that Kathy was under a little stress with things taking place at home when.
Her mother's been
Yes.
very ill.
So she didn't get around to get that transfer. So we don't wanna accuse her. And
No,
I
no,
know
no, no.
the girls-
Oh, no,
I
no,
know
no one's doing
nobody
that.
wants to, but if you come up and say it's still on PayPal, she might have a nervous breakdown, and I know you guys know that.
Yeah, we
But
certainly.
there's some other folks.
We certainly
that,
don't want to put anyone in a bad position. So that's where I think
Yeah.
this goes to
Yeah.
the next, to a different approach.
Certainly, none of my comments have been to suggest that anyone's doing anything intentionally wrong or anything. We just don't have policies or protocols in place
Right.
for it.
And
For these
agree with
things,
everything
yeah.
you guys are saying.
We're
Okay.
trying to grow up, I guess, is the best way to
Mhm.
put
Would it be
it. All right.
appropriate to have Adam develop a draft policy for fundraising, the various avenues for fundraising? That could be.
That's, I think, where we're
presented
headed.
at the strategic planning meeting, so it's something's already in draft form.
that's what I think that we're trying to springboard to, and I don't know that it would be just Adam, I think it would be one of these task groups, correct me if I'm wrong, or everyone together. So that's exactly what we're
To have
heading.
that for that meeting, it would be.
The community foundations can also probably be a resource.
Mhm.
I think-
Absolutely.
And if you go through them too, then you have their name on the event, they're advertising for it, I could just bump it up for them.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and actually, Pam, one of the other things I was gonna report on is Pam and I had a meeting with Sarah Beggs from the IU Foundation. And one of her suggestions to us was to work with Tina Peterson at the Community Foundation of Bloomington and Monroe County. And so that there, again, this is the thing of, we've started some things and we need to now put some structure around them. And I don't think anybody is being critical of anyone. It's just that
No.
we can't continue to operate the way we have.
I
And
agree.
that's, you know.
And that's a shared
the-
responsibility as
The
we go forward.
volunteers and the committee members need to understand that, and the board needs to get more involved.
Yep, that's on all of us, so. All right.
Okay.
Hey, can I say one thing?
Sure.
I found that agreement, Mike, and we approved it actually at this board meeting last April. And the resolution says that, you know, we established this pass-through fund, and the authorization to request the funds out of there has to be approved by us, the board of directors, and we've also given permission to the chairman, the vice chairman, and the district manager, I guess. So, just to let you know.
Last April 2018?
Correct, yeah.
Thank you.
April 26th, it's in that board packet.
Okay.
Good job.
I think we don't do all of it.
Okay, I think that's a good plan.
Okay. That is all that happened at the SPC meeting.
Stay tuned.
The other item that's on the agenda, and I'm looking at the clock, is our discussion on the board meeting structure and, you know, so that we could bring more of the discussion and have more board involvement at this meeting. That was why I took last month's agenda and, you know, tried to redraw it as, here's what it would look like if we used a consent agenda and how much
Yeah,
time.
we're gonna be here a while.
We're gonna be here a while
Yeah.
because it's pouring rain now. Why we, if we used a consent agenda, that we could actually have the SPC meeting be part of our regular board meetings. And we talked about the idea of creating other task groups or subcommittees. I don't, you know, Michael very kindly gave the board some feedback on the issues that we run into with that, but the more, if this evening has taught me nothing, it's that almost all of the discussion that occurs in the SPC should be occurring in this
I
meeting.
agree.
So that we don't run into this kind of, well, when did we approve that? Or I don't understand that. And we don't have a situation that evolves where the board hasn't gotten to weigh in on something that now has evolved to a certain level. So I don't know what, I'd like to hear what people thought generally when they looked at the concept or the idea.
It makes sense. I mean, I pointed out that I can't go to the SPC meetings often because I run a business on the lake and that's
Right.
kind of a busy time for me. And I often feel like I don't know what's going on, and I'm surprised when things are happening that it's like, when was that discussed? And so I think it affects the board. I think we do need to be involved in it.
I think you did a great job of piecing this out. And as we've gotten more, if we're doing more things and requiring more time for us as a board to communicate, the open door laws do not allow us to hardly do that ever without being in a public meeting. And as it is, you know, we've done the best we can, but those laws are easy. Michael said it so well. They're easy to break without meaning to.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it would help us toward that goal of being able to get together and get stuff done. as a board without having to feel that we're breaking
So
laws.
even though there's not a quorum, we still can't legally get together like we have been? Is that what
So-
it says?
Well, those are
You mean at the SPC?
The SBC has been in compliance with ODOT.
Yeah.
Yes.
We advertise it.
What the challenge is, so we've been doing proper public notices for the SPC, and that's a committee that was appointed by this body, so it falls under the Open Doors Law. Those meetings are noticed as SPC meetings, so that's for that group to come together. If we have more than 3 of us, this body, at that meeting, then it also is effectively a board meeting. And for more than 3 of us to be present on that, even if we're not physically members of that committee, the state law would say that we would need to notice that meeting not only as an SPC meeting, but also as a board meeting.
Does that, you confuse me here because Adam's there and sometimes these 2 ladies are there.
I'm not a board member.
Okay.
Yeah,
He doesn't
He's not
count.
a
It's
So-
gotta be
So what, the
4.
key is that we can't have more than a quorum of this body, so it's a 7-member board, so if there's 3 of us here,
That's
it's
okay.
fine. It's
4 is a
when we get
no-no.
to that 4, whether or not we're actually a
Because
member
we
of the
could
SBC.
actually then make decisions.
Right.
Well, that's what I thought. It was like,
Yeah.
when he was explaining, it's like, Adam's is. and Mark.
No, he doesn't count as
I
the.
get no vote in policy.
He don't count like that.
Well,
What he said.
and it's the reason that Debbie, when she offered to be on the finance committee, it's the reason that Mary Jane had offered to step away, because it would have made it 4 instead of 3.
Okay.
So, same,
So when we advertise the board meeting, would you include the task groups that would be coming to those?
Well, it depends on how we structure it. We can still have task groups, but what we would do is just make them committees of the manager, appointed by the manager. And then you can have those components, and those groups would still be able to come to our meetings and make reports and recommendations to it. That's clearly within the state law. And that's, very similar to the example that I provided of the superintendent. If the superintendent creates a committee, and then that committee makes a report to the board, they're not subject to the open doors laws. If we, the board, make the committee, or the presiding officer, in this case Pam as the chair, make the committee, then it's a
Governing body,
Yeah, then
supporting
it
committee.
then it
I understand that. So I thought last month's discussion was to have a board member on these committee
Well, we
task
talked
groups.
about that.
Okay, I didn't know
Well,
that.
We talked about that, but maybe that,
Yeah.
so that's another question I have.
uh-huh.
If Adam appoints a task group.
Adam can appoint
he
a
can
board
appoint
members to it.
board members to
Absolutely.
be on those task groups.
Now, I can't point more than 3 of us.
Right,
right.
So
on any given group.
how is this task force then, task group different from what we're doing now?
We wouldn't have a meeting 2 weeks before the board meeting. We would have the SPC meeting
Here.
as part of the board meeting.
So the groups.
So actually, we would
So-
have fewer meetings.
But
We
longer
really wouldn't
meetings.
have the SPC. Would
Uh,
some of those people just be divided up maybe on committees? I mean,
Exactly.
would the SPC still exist?
No, I'm just using the terminology, Debbie.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
So.
So, no, the
we would
whole
have-
idea of the consent agenda
Is to free up time.
is to save time.
Yeah, I
So
got
we can
that.
have-
And so we would condense the routine business portion of the meeting and then use the bulk of the time to discuss the business of the lake, whether that's lake health, whether it's fundraising, whether it's communication,
Okay, so with.
all
with
those
these-
different topics that we discussed in the SPC today.
Okay, so these
Park
task
plan.
groups would be here every time?
Not necessarily every
No.
task group every
Okay.
time.
Because
It's
you
only if
wouldn't
they
have-
have business
To discuss, yeah.
So, and I was trying to demonstrate that, even with last month's agenda, we would have had 40 or 45 minutes to have reports from the various task groups. And, you know, Adam's manager's report will change also if we went to this new process. The other thing I think is we would probably ask people to submit information if that's appropriate, or a presentation, short presentation or whatever, to be included in the board packet, so we would have more robust materials that people could see in advance of the meeting and then come prepared to ask questions and debate and discuss. We're doing a good job of debating tonight, but that's something that I
did
thought
have a
that we need
question.
to.
What is this straw man thing? What is that?
I put it out there for you to poke holes in it. That's what straw man means.
Desert, you know.
It's just
It's a fake
a
layout.
concept of, it's like a mock.
So
Thing.
do you see us having
Pick apart.
3 task groups, lake health, finance, parks, for example? Is that how it's divided now, or?
I mean, I think that's what
Yeah.
we could ultimately,
Yeah,
what's going
I
to best
think
meet
there
our
needs to
needs.
be communication and marketing, fundraising. That needs to be.
Where
So-
does parks go, Mary Jane?
Pardon?
I noticed that was kind of on the radar before, but what does that fall under then?
Parks fall under the lake.
I'm sorry.
Parks.
Parks?
Parks is.
What would parks fall under?
Park-
Like health, communications?
Parks is
It doesn't fall
Parks is
under
its
any
own.
of those.
Yeah, so
It's a standalone.
the sample agenda here, it's not reflective of all the potential
Right.
groups. It's just taking what
Okay.
transpired at the last meeting. These are
Exactly.
the
Right.
groups that would have had the presentation.
Do you know there's a cumulative maintenance fund for park improvement?
Oh, stop.
So they continuous improvement.
Michael
plan?
Klitzing, I have a question for you. Does it seem like the way we operate, mostly as a volunteer board with a few staff, does it seem plausible to you that Adam would be assigning and making these up, these committees? I mean,
It's certainly practical, and a committee of the manager doesn't necessarily, the manager doesn't have to point himself to that committee, so it doesn't
Right.
mean that he's on every committee.
Okay.
There is committees that ultimately report to him, and then make presentations to the board.
right,
So
and we
I
are supporting him in his role as
Correct.
the lake manager, so it does seem definitely within his purview to say, looking at the, you know, people on the board and others, this is who would be good at this or that or the other.
Yeah, I mean, it still provides the opportunity for board involvement as well as freeholder involvement, because if you have, I think those committees would certainly have the ability to broaden, just as we have used this SPC.
Sure.
Conversely, if these appointments aren't working, and Mary Jane and I talked about this today, then it would be our prerogative as a board to suggest to Adam that those choices are needing to be
And one of the things I would still very much, which was kind of one of the things that you identified for the ad hoc and task force committees, and even for the standing committees, I think each committee needs to have the rules, if you will, as
Right.
to what's their mandate, what are they supposed to do, you know, how is it structured, and you know, number of the committees can be, standing or ad hoc or whatever you want to, ad hoc or task force committees that have defined start and date times, and then we can make, you can make decisions as to, is that renewed?
So it's not a life sentence.
Correct.
Okay.
So these task groups would not meet anytime except
During
here
these
at this
No,
meeting.
they can meet
On their own.
On their own.
But
Oh,
then,
yeah.
so again, why is that different from what we're doing now? To me, that's what we're doing. We have
Because they
people-
don't report back to the SPC, they come to
Back
this
to the
meeting
board.
to make a report.
Basically, we're cutting out the middleman.
Right.
Oh, that's well.
That's absolutely right.
So there will be no SPC.
Right.
So
Frank.
I'm sorry,
And
no,
we're
that's,
taking all the
that's, I was going to
numerous
say, is
issues
Frank the
that
only
one
member?
person's been addressed and breaking
I
it
wish
out.
Malcolm were here.
Deb, hang on a minute.
Same time.
Debbie.
Malcolm.
We
hang on a second,
actually
please.
had this discussion at the SPC.
Well, I
meeting.
wasn't there, so here's what I'm gonna say, is Malcolm made it pretty clear last month that the energy and momentum of the SPC could be, could be halted.
Compromise.
Compromise.
And he came up to me following the meeting and he said, I understand that we're growing and whatever the board decides, I will abide by.
Okay?
Frank, back to you.
Yes, thank you.
And Debbie, I'm coming to you next. Hang on.
The town of Speedway utilizes a very similar arrangement when I was involved in their governing board. So the town council members, they have 2 town council members that are assigned to every committee, a senior member, a junior member. So you get the leadership and guidance and you're grooming the next generation as the senior steps off and the junior takes the lead, and then you assign another junior. But then you get the energy of the local community volunteers who are on these task groups or committees or whatever you call them. And generally, at least in the town of Speedway, they commonly assign someone that was not on the town council to be the chair of that group. And that group has very strict guidance of what documentation they follow, reporting that they give prior to the meeting, so that in our case, Adam can submit that as part of the board packets, because we're kind of working through Adam is how the structure is set up in the governing law. It's the town manager in the town of Speedway. But ultimately, the task groups or committees or whatever they're called can then meet, as long as there's only, in their case, they had 2 town council members or less that were on them, and they developed everything. But they don't vote, they have no power. They come up with recommendations. It's really no different than how the Lake Health Task Group does. Everything we do, and Adam's part of that, is all presenting recommendations. All we're doing is getting rid of the middleman, the strategic planning committee. But I would recommend we still adopt like Speedway does and bring in some board members into that organization, so you get not only the leadership, but then at least 2 of you on the board know what's coming down the pike besides what's only printed in the board packet information you get ahead of time. We already get your guidance, we already have your support, we're moving in that direction. If Adam's there or not, doesn't make any difference, because we already have some board participation. And most of those meetings were done by conference calls. So it made it easy for the board and everybody else to not have just another meeting where you had to reschedule your whole week or day.
Sure. Debbie, I promised you I'd come back. I know this is hard for you to hear. Did you have an addition?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay. Sorry, it is a little hard to know.
No, you're fine. You're
Okey-doke. Okay.
So,
So straw woman. Where are we?
are we saying we are generally amenable to this concept?
Yes.
I think that's what I'm hearing.
Then
for me.
I would like to ask that somebody on the board who's not an SPC member would join me in kind of teasing this whole thing out further, so that we can come back in May with a better picture of this. We're going to talk more about it at the SPC meeting itself, but I think we need to start to put some things together. And I don't know, maybe I sit down with Adam and talk about it. Maybe that's, if he's.
I wish I could volunteer, but that's getting ready to go into prime season
Sure.
for parks.
I was just about to volunteer you, Michael. Of course, you're.
I'm finally learning how to say no.
I think that
That's
the
good. That's a good
knowledge
thing.
you bring is incredible, just on standing ad hoc task force. And Mary Jane, I think you've done a tremendous job on this. I really, really do think you've done a nice job in trying to navigate through it.
Thank you. Well, maybe what we'll do is I'll get together with Adam. One of the things that has crossed my mind is what just got mentioned, that this is starting to be a very busy season for people. There's some things that we clearly need to work out around some of the activities with fundraising and that kind of stuff. Maybe we should continue to work on this and not plan to implement a new board process until the fall.
I think that's.
Because I think
Yeah.
introducing this in the summer meetings might be chaotic.
Terrible idea.
And that way, we would really have the opportunity to get
Flush
it
it out.
right
Yeah. I
and
think
really
that's
get into
smart.
the detail. And go through the process of, here are the mandates, if you will, for each task group. Is that,
I think that's probably a wise suggestion, and that's just my opinion, but I do think that somehow, Mary Jane, for those 4 of us that don't participate and can't be at those meetings, and it now seems to me maybe we were in violation at some point, maybe I was a 4th, I'm not sure.
you
But,
can attend the
you know, that we
meeting.
need an outreach.
Debbie, my understanding is the whole board could come to the SPC meeting. It's just that you can't be a member and be involved in the, no?
That's not what Michael just
No.
said, I don't think.
They can't even sit in the room?
No, because an official
Or be on
act
the
of
phone.
information, an official action for the board is just receiving
just
information is
Getting-
not an official
That's where,
action.
that's where that.
So that's where it
takes us
goes.
up
Now,
every
So
time.
you have to
if you
be under
have
a rock and.
Yeah, so literally you can
Well,
only have
but-
3 board members there, whether or not they're on the committee.
Did you bring that information? Because the amended Open Doors law is allowing for email now.
You can, yeah. through
And
email
so,
you can
and we
have
are,
this
I mean, we're not, I don't like the word violating. We are on the cusp of that almost every time we send and receive emails. And so all I'm saying is, I think the amended version of the open door law, and believe me, I want to go to that class too. Sometimes I think that we should have counsel here during these board meetings. It's almost worth to get a junior lawyer from her law firm to come in here and sit with us and give us guidance. But the amended laws, for example, when they came to a DSG meeting and we had 4, I would announce, we now have a quorum of board members, but no official action will be done by this group. We're strictly talking about dredging study, and and so you announce it at those meetings, and that way you're not violating an open door law, because they were posted. Adam posted them.
Yeah.
So you didn't bring those with you?
I've got them.
Okay, I thought you were going to bring them for us to.
Yeah, I've got it in the back.
All right.
So,
We
yeah.
have a lot to discuss.
So, yeah, my understanding, and based on what our park board attorney has said, is unless it's actually posted as a board meeting, if you have a quorum of the board there. I mean, if you have a quorum of the board there, even if it's for a meeting that is posted for a committee, at the moment that your quorum arrives, you're in violation if you haven't posted it as
Okay.
a board. That's how it's been explained to me.
How does that also include someone calling in? So if a
Now-
board member, if
Yeah.
the 4th one calls in, is that?
I
don't know?
think that's
That's a gray
That's
zone.
maybe a gray area because you don't count towards the quorum, because you can't vote.
Okay.
So.
That makes sense to me.
But I don't know, I think that's a question for the Public Access Council.
Yes.
Okay, well, how do we get the training?
Contact the Public Access Counselor and we have them come
To a board meeting
to a board meeting. Find out
Okay,
how they can come.
can we get them to come
Yeah.
in May.
in
To the
May?
Public Access Council.
I don't know.
Well, if Miranda Busey's coming, that'd be a lot of people, but that's okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be too many.
Can you do board training? You can't even do like a board training
can do
session?
board training
Is that
is-
against the law?
No,
No.
you can do that. Like our workshop was not in violation in training.
So we could, Michael said before the meeting
Yeah.
today, we were talking about this, and he said that it's not a particularly long training session. We could do it after a board meeting, if
That-
we wanted to.
And that is heading into Memorial Day weekend, so might a lot of
Mhm.
people be here for the duration, or? is that
I
presumptuous?
probably will be.
Just practicality.
I would not be able to attend.
That's not a good
No,
weekend for
that
you.
won't be a
Okay,
good
okay.
weekend for
We-
Laura.
Well, let's see what's,
I also kind of wonder, honestly, when I saw that TSG representative was going to come, you know, it just seems like we don't really have to, quote, take our public meeting time to get educated on something, so that we know what we're doing. I mean, is that against the rules, Michael? Like, it seems like she would be training.
If it's training,
And same
if
with
it's truly
whoever would
training,
do this
then
open door stuff.
it doesn't, yeah, it can fall into the non-meeting component. It doesn't have to be a published public meeting.
Okay. Well, we'll go from there, I guess. Okay, you're right, I don't think we can do it in May.
No.
We may need to have, that's one of the things we can call an executive session for.
training.
Doesn't Angela have a junior lawyer in her office that could come, like, what was the guy's name, Greg, that left?
I'll have to ask her.
You know, I mean,
Well, Patty seemed to be pretty knowledgeable because we wanted to just disseminate
Yeah.
this financial information, and she said, "Oh no, that's against the rules." And so only 3 of us were on the call, and now we're going to meet individually with you guys and go over it. You
Yeah.
know, so
Uh-huh. So,
Does it
um,
have to be executive session? I don't think it
One,
has to.
I have one other thing I wanted to bring up with the board that doesn't relate particularly to this topic. As we have been talking to people about fundraising, the first thing out of every good person we've talked with is, well, you need a message. You need to get your message together. And this has been a struggle to this point to go, well, why should people give money to us? And I'm not just talking about $5, I'm talking about, you know,
Right.
bigger donations. So what I would like everybody on the board to do is write a paragraph or a half a page, no more than that, and send that to me, and I'll put them together in a single document, and then we can start to talk about how do we tease out that kind of the elevator speech, if you will, about why it's important to sustain the lake. And Adam and Alex, I would invite you to do the same.
And components of that half page might be a personal story. Doesn't have to be. Might be help.
Well,
but it's not
that- I
like
mean, they're all, it
necessarily
could
what
be,
the link means to you.
it could
I
be-
mean, what
Does-
you're trying to do, you know, to a certain extent, once we get that report on the whole lake health, it'll help us, but.
does the Lake Lemon
Our
enhancement, I
fundraising
thought she was
consultant,
finished.
She basically said, you know, state what the problem is and what the solution is.
Does the Lake Lemon Enhancement Fund have a mission? Do they have a mission? Do we have a?
yes.
Yes, yeah,
And I
we've
will,
got
I
a
will,
mission
you know what,
statement.
there's a whole bunch of stuff I'm gonna send out to the board.
Okay.
And I will send the
And-
statement that's with the funds. And then we talked last month about, you know, that we really never developed a strategic plan. And I went back and I pulled a bunch of stuff that the SPC actually did go through at its inception. And several pieces of that, while it's not a full strategic plan, several pieces of that are elements of what you would do in the strategic planning process. And I will send that to everybody along with some more detailed instructions about how to think about
Because I thought
why you would give money to.
that's why you said at the very beginning of your update was we need to be putting the money to where we said we were going to put it. And is that in the mission? That the Lake Enhancement Fund has a mission, and when we collect your funds, it's going to go to these 3 areas, and that's it.
It's pretty broad. Essentially, it
broad.
says
It's to sustain the
preserve
lake.
and enhance
Okay.
the
Because
health and usability. They said not to make it too specific because we
Because
have
then
to
you get in
request the
trouble
money
if
from
you
their
want to
board.
spend it on
Yeah.
clothes.
well,
Food. But
on new clothes.
the resolution only gave us permission to use these 2 foundations as pass-throughs. That's all this
Right.
is. Yeah, these are just pass-through
Right, but
resolutions.
then when we open the funds in those, we have a statement in the foundation, in the fund.
Very good.
So we'll get that to you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and what's your deadline on that? Homework
Oh.
assignment?
I'd like to have it in the next 2 weeks. I'd like to have it before, so that I would have time then to put it together for the board to see with the board packet for May.
Okay.
I know we're like way over, but I just happen to have that purpose statement in here, which you should send out. But it just says the purpose of the fund shall be to support, to provide support to Lake Lemon Conservancy District as directed by the Board of Directors of the Community Foundation. Such support shall be used to provide support for sustainable practices to protect natural resources, restore wild places, support efforts to control sediment and water quality, engage in recreation, provide education, and serve as a research environment for the common good of Lake Lemon, and to enhance the current and future value of Lake Lemon as a community and natural resource area within the meaning of blah, blah, blah.
Did I hear you?
Pretty good.
Did I hear you say
We thought it was.
the Lake Lemon Enhancement Fund Board?
We have to, when we request money, we have to go through their board, through the
Go through
The
foundation.
Foundation.
the community foundation,
Okay.
when you put money there, they basically, you know, their board will be sure that it meets the purposes. And like, our goal has to be consistent with their community foundation too, but it's
Is
just
that in-
kind of a.
Is that in a
it's
board
just kind of
packet?
a thing to jump through, a hoop to jump through, honestly.
Debbie, is that in a board packet that you're reading?
Yeah, it was. It was an attachment in that April 26th. It was attachment A, and it's basically our agreement with the Monroe County Community Foundation. I think and then the agreement with Brown County. I'm
They
sure
are
is
the same.
Here too. Yeah.
Debbie, they're the same.
Are you finished
Okay.
with your
My
report?
report is concluded.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to see if any of you have further comment at this time, and thank you. I see you glazing over. I don't know that you want to go anywhere in that rain, but our next meeting is...
Gail has something.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were leaving. I'm sorry. Okay, yes, ma'am.
I was wondering if we could somehow get a little bit of funding to put up some signs, especially at the causeway, asking people to please not litter. Maybe it could be something nice, encourage them not to litter. I know we've had, one of my neighbors put a trash can there, but it was filled up instantly. It's hard to keep the trash cans empty, but, you know, please keep our lakes beautiful.
I wonder about sizing of those, though, with the space. Would we be able to put a sign up that would be
I'll talk to the
meaningful?
highway
You have to
department
talk to the
first.
highway department.
Yeah.
Well, there's our
We have
little
jurisdiction.
parking area, the little place where so it's the little triangle, that's where the litter is, the triangle on the lagoon side.
Yeah, Shuffle Creek right there.
Right.
I'll just have to
Yeah.
talk to the highway department and
I
get
don't know if
permission to
it's-
put any signage on the road.
It's not really, I mean, well, I'm thinking when the sign would go, it wouldn't really be on the road. It
Yeah,
would
but
be
their
like,
jurisdiction goes quite late.
oh,
But it's, I think it's a good,
it's, oh my God, I think it's almost to the edge of the lagoon.
I think we put a big
One
sign
extra.
up right in that parking area. So
Yeah, really.
I noticed that the railroad sprayed along the edge of the pond. I mean, it killed trees, whatever they used. So whatever they sprayed from the causeway to the other side of the pond, they have killed everything, every piece of vegetation from the pond up to the railroad. That has to wash into that pond, whatever they sprayed.
They did it like one day. They're still down there working by.
I don't know if you can find out what they
They've cut
sprayed.
down more trees than they've ever cut down, like on my property, they've knocked down fences, they went way back.
I've never seen a chemical
Well,
kill.
they have all along 45 on the way into
Yeah.
Blues.
It's crazy. You can see it's just brown across there. Whatever they used, it's potent.
Wow.
Anyway, that's all I got.
Thanks,
You know,
Gail.
that brings up another point is, can we be sure to get it in the newsletter about discouraging people from spraying their lawns? I mean, you've said that before.
Yeah,
but-
we do routinely put that out. You put that out.
I know it's been there before, but I just want to make sure
Yeah,
you made a
yeah.
little note every time.
It's yeah, good to reiterate. All right, the next meeting is May the 23rd, so that'll be the Thursday before Memorial Day. Yay. And I would entertain a motion to adjourn, and thank you for your patience.
Adjourn.
Second?
Second.
In favor? Aye. Opposed? Good night. Be careful.
You gotta go.
Yeah, out to the rain.
Bye, Debbie.
Bye, Debbie. Thanks for joining us. Enjoy Florida. I got a copy of Michael brought copies of the open door law, most current, so I saved yours for you.
Did you stop this?